It wasn't really a deliberate choice. I was talking about what I saw. It was 2012, the war in Syria was raging. I was living in Beirut in a cozy neighborhood. And in the same time I was reporting on Syrian refugees in the camps and on the border. And I was also seeing in my neighborhood refugees coming in. They were walking, they had naked hands, they had only their bare hands, and they were saying this slogan, Hadid, Has, Battariyat, which is metal, copper, batteries. So they were trying to get some used metal to be able to recycle it and make a living out of it. And at the same time, in this cozy neighborhood, there were also the Ethiopian domestic workers walking with their employers. They were carrying them because they're elderly people. And in parallel, there was the Syrians carrying the metal. So I saw these two populations carrying things, like modern Sisyphus. They were carrying like atlases. They were carrying like infinitely. And it touched me. Their plight touched me, and I wanted to do something about them. So this is how the idea came. It was not a deliberate decision to do a film about others. The reality imposed itself on me. When I wanted to talk about those two themes, two causes, these themes are very dramatic. You know, the suffering of Syrian refugees, the suffering of Ethiopian workers, domestic workers. It's very dramatic, and I didn't want it to be a 1 hour and a half lamento social film on the suffering of people. This is easy. You can make people cry easily. You show people suffering, they cry. This is the basic. I wanted to do something a bit more ambitious. So I thought, what can be the link between those marginals, those two carrying people? And I found the love story to be the most interesting transversal link between them. Why? Not because those people cannot love each other. I'm sure there is full of love stories between Syrians, Ethiopians, and between any human beings. But because in the eyes of the Lebanese bourgeois that we are, we don't consider them as being able to love each other, as being humans. So the first important idea was to humanize those people through this love story, to make them human again. The protagonist has his hand that turns mysteriously into metal, and this is a metaphor about the victims of war. Having lived the Lebanese war, having witnessed many wars as a journalist, my conclusion is that wars corrupt people, even those who haven't fought it. War corrupts and gangrenes. It's like a gangrene that eats even the victims of war. Anyone who has seen or witnessed atrocities has this kind of eternal sadness, nostalgia, and it shows in the eyes. And we can see this in the eyes of the characters. So you cannot get rid of the war once you have seen it, and it eats you, and it eats you at different levels. So I wanted to show this metaphor of the metal. So Ahmed, he begs for metal. At the same time, he has received wounds that have put metal in his body. This metal is eating him, turning his arm into metal, and at the end he loses his arm and carries it like the beginning, as if he had found metal. So there is this circle. At the same time, it comes from a very personal experience. I lived the Lebanese war in Lebanon. When I was a kid, at 9 years old, I was wounded very seriously by an Israeli grenade that exploded like 2 meters from me. So my body, even today, contains metal shrapnels. I have one in here, I have one in the legs, and sometimes it comes out. So I wanted to do a metaphor also about this personal experience and to show it in the film. There is a legal system that exists in Lebanon and in some Arab countries that is very binding for domestic workers. It's called kafala, and it's one of the conditions is that they cannot keep their passport. They have very limited access to many things. And I didn't want to do a documentary about it, but I wanted to evoke it in one scene, actually, where I show this. And just to show how administratively these people are not treated with the same rights as they are treated in in Europe or in other parts of the world. So even if they escape from their house, they cannot escape the territory. So they are permanently prisoners of something. And it's also this Sisyphus, this Atlas that is constantly imprisoning the characters. There's always a kind of circle around them that is keeping them prisoners. He is prisoner of the metal, she is prisoner of the laws. Even if she comes out of the house, there is something that's going to keep her prisoner. So there is a very particular, very delicate tone I wanted to give to the film, because I'm showing people suffering, and I didn't want to show this in a frontal way because it was too easy. So I wanted to do a permanent décalage, which would give a slight offset tone on the film. I wanted to treat things lightly because what the viewer expects on these kind of films, on these kind of themes, is to go dramatic. And me being like a little bit crazy, I like to show the other side. And the other side was being light. But in the same time, you cannot make fun of these people. So those are two limits. You don't want people cry too much. You don't want to make them laugh too much. So you have to find the right tone. And it's very, very difficult, believe me, especially in the direction of actors. My film is based on cruel sitcoms. So there's cruelty, and it makes you laugh, but it makes you like, not ha ha ha. It's like a kind of mix. So yeah, I have many references in cinema. It ranges from Bresson to Tsai Ming-liang to Kaurismäki to this guy, Monteiro, which I like very much, so I make him alive again in my t-shirt. For the choice of actors, I was looking for this sadness in their eyes, and both have it. Their characters are very courageous, they are fighters, but yet they are very fragile. They are fragile physically, they are fragile in their eyes. So I wanted to find the mix, which is also the mix of the film. There's always a duality in the film. It's never frontal, there's not one element. Comical and sad, strong and fragile, so I'm always trying to find the middle. It's a very oriental thing, I think.